Hey everybody, I'm Joe. So we're talking about the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, which as of recording has had 3 rules errata, and it is still in playtest. So some things might change as different errata, and eventually the full rules manual comes out in June of this year. But as of right now, I want to talk about the rules that I really like in this game. A role-playing game is really 2 sides. There is a full world that we can build and play in, and we want our players to be able to do anything that strikes their fancy, anything that seems exciting to them, we want them to have access to. But we need to have a set of dice mechanics and rules so that the game has stakes, so that loss is possible, so that it still is a game. And having good game mechanics can lead to different types of flavor and stories. And I like a lot of the rules that they've come up with for this game. Not all of them, but many of them. So this is gonna be 2 parts. Today I wanna talk about rules I really like. What are the things that are working in this game as it is today, and I don't want to see altered. And in a later video, I'm gonna talk about what are the things that are missing or not quite right. So that's kind of where we're headed. So the first rule that I really like is that damage auto-scales. This is not universal in TTRPGs. If you've played Dungeons & Dragons, you know that if you don't continually invest in either multi-classing or feats or trying to find specific weapons, then your damage plateaus. And it plateaus pretty hard at certain points. And the damage from monsters does not plateau. The damage coming from monsters scales because monsters can have challenge ratings that go up to 30, where players can only ever play to level 20. And that's kind of tricky because new players don't know to continually try to invest in their damage output, and they will see it plateau. So with this system, if you're not aware, they have scaled back in the errata the way that damage happens. And they've done it in a pretty convenient way. Let's say that you are a rank 2 character and you are attacking using might, and you have a 4 in your attack. Okay, so that your might is a 4, and you roll your attack. Well, the attack roll is going to be your 3d6 plus 4 to see if you hit. Awesome. Then you take your Marvel die from that same roll and you multiply it against your rank. So this is going to be a 2 times whatever our Marvel die was. Let's say our Marvel die was a 3, and all of a sudden we have 6 damage plus 4 from the ability that we attacked with, and now we have a 10 flat damage that happens. That's nice. It's a single roll, so it's very easy to teach to new players, and the damage auto scales because we are multiplying against rank. As rank goes up, your damage auto scales. And so you don't have to worry about constantly finding powers that will up your damage, though that is nice to do. You can also invest in things that are going to give you better ability for problem solving, utility, exploration. You're going to be able to do these additional fun things, and honestly, that's a really good thing. So way to go, Marvel. Damage auto scaling. Love it. So the second rule I really like is the way that focus works. I think this is a good part of the game. Focus is supposed to represent your character's mental stamina, your ability to psych yourself up and be mentally prepped for battle. And that's awesome. Focus asks you to invest in your focus score so that you have a little bit more of a multiple attribute dependent character, which is a good thing. It asks you to make strategic choices. And then you can spend focus. As an example, on page 75, there is a power called Do This All Day. I've talked about this power before. You get to spend focus to regain health. That's awesome. That's a really good power. There are other powers that let you spend focus in order to fuel your power and make it more vicious towards your enemies, which is great. Having 2 fuels, essentially, your health and your focus, mean that you have to pay attention to multiple aspects of your character simultaneously, and I love that feel. Moreover, on page 92, there's a power called Wisecracker, which allows you to attack somebody's focus and not their health. Now, there needs to be more powers that attack focus. I'll just tell you that right now. We really only have the one in the playtest document. But if your focus drops down to 0, you start having trouble on just about everything you try to do. And if your focus is taken down to the negative absolute value of your max focus, you go insane. Just the same way that going down to the negative health value of your max health kills you outright. It's an important part of your character to manage. And so we need to have more powers that attack focus, because that would be an interesting character build. But this is a good mechanic. It works. It's interesting. So thumbs up. The last part of the rules that I want to talk about that I really like is how the game deals with improvised weapons. Other game systems don't deal with improvised weapons very well. In D&D, for instance, there's actually a fighting style called Tavern Brawler that you have to take in order to use improvised weapons, and they just don't do interesting damage, and it doesn't pair with other aspects of the game, like feats. So using improvised weapons is very discouraged in D&D, and that's a shame because it's a fun play style. It asks you to understand the environment better, to interact with it, to think about it. In the Marvel Multiverse game, it's almost expected that you will interact with the environment and utilize things around you. And I think you can build characters around this. We're taking a look at page 31 and 32 of the playtest document, but this indicates first that there are 10 sizes of characters, 10, which is quite a bit. And each of these gives you the ability to pick up items of certain sizes. Now that interacts with certain powers, like the Mighty power, which allows you to start picking up items of larger sizes. We then learn on page 32 that items of certain sizes do certain amounts of damage. And the only real rule is when you utilize an object as a weapon and deal damage, that same damage is dealt to the object and eventually it's destroyed. The example given is literally throwing a car at people. This is fun. This makes improvised weapons actually meaningful. It allows you to use them and suffer no real detriment. It also allows strength-based characters to start using ranged options. So there's a lot of interaction that happens here really well. A whole section on page 32 going into page 33 talks about throwing people through walls and how much damage has to be dealt for that to work effectively. So throwing people through glass is one rule set, throwing people through a brick wall is another. This is fun, this is interesting, and there is a play style here that's not really available in D&D, but is totally legitimate in the Marvel Multiverse game. I love it. It needs to be kept this simple and this streamlined. So this has been a look at 3 rules that I really like, 3 rules that work in the Marvel Multiverse game that will make gameplay fun at your table. If you've play tested this game and you have some rules that have really worked well, I'd love to hear about it. All right, thanks a lot. See you next time.